Scientific experiments are in almost every instance planned, not to open new areas of the unknown in cosmic science, but to reinforce the ideas we already hold regarding the reality of the universe. Planners have left no time or leeway in which the UFO can be postulated, thought about, or examined. Certainly, few startling public announcements have been made of any new discoveries during space missions. No new theories have been advanced. Astronaut Jack Lausma in Skylab 3 saw a glowing red object making its way across a field of his vision. He photographed it from his little planetoid in space, the NASA Skylab. It could have been explained as a meteor glowing red in space, except that there is no atmosphere in space whose friction could heat a meteor to a red glow. Was it a UFO observing Skylab? NASA remains silent. Complex instrument packages such as Explorer 10 vanish in space. Launched on the 25th of March, 1961, it disappeared, although its life expectancy was over 100 years. Perhaps some alien intelligence is examining this complex NASA space device. NORAD cannot find it, and it is not transmitting. It just disappeared. What is the photographic evidence that UFOs are watching our every space move? Why is it so hard for the project managers of NASA to accept the reality of the UFO? Is there a high-level scientific cover-up? And if so, why? Governments are charged with upholding the law, and no law on Earth is more basic than the law of gravity. No wonder the obvious anti-gravity capability of the UFO makes governments uncomfortable. Bravely, some astronauts have stated that they believe in the reality of the UFO and the capability of the UFO to defy gravity, while our giant rockets consume enormous amounts of fuel, putting a simple space capsule or Skylab in orbit. In the dark blue of space, in silence orbiting the Earth, the Skylab is the planetoid home of its crew. The crew is like the NASA test pilots in the X-15, busily occupied and concerned with the scientific work outlined for them by their NASA masters. Life support in Earth orbit is a scientific victory in itself and a major achievement for Earthlings. But outside alien intelligences are again observing the progress of man from Earth. 2 UFOs are photographed by an astronaut during a spacewalk. The hatch is open. The astronaut is working his problem. Again, 2 UFOs flit by. Just moving lights, something that could be easily ignored unless we obtained other pictures and other explanations. Actual pictures which could identify the UFO as a solid object with a mission and under intelligent control.
One of the most remarkable instances of UFO photography took place in 1968, here above the Boeing Space Laboratory, south of Renton, Washington. Several photographs were taken of a UFO by then 14-year-old Scott Silty. It showed its anti-gravity capabilities as it hovered over the center in 2 locations. His efforts produced probably the only detailed shots of a UFO materializing to show configuration and portholes. His junior high school instructor, Jim Holm, was given the negatives to develop. Holm said he didn't know what to expect, but became a believer when he saw what the young Silty had apparently captured on film.
When they came in that morning and they said, hey, we got the pictures we were talking about, naturally, you know, junior high students, you're a little bit reluctant to believe everything they say. But then, you know, as things proceeded, what happened was I developed the pictures, and we know the results now.
What is your impression of what that object is?
I'm always hesitant, but I would have to say that believing the students and the type of students they were, it almost definitely had to be some type of a flying object.
Right out there.
Right. And it's a little eerie. The thing that shook me up at first is I was reluctant to believe him. And when I developed the film, I really couldn't see that much, but I was shocked. I have to admit, I was shocked when I put it in the enlarger, and through the enlarger I could see a great deal more of what the object looked like.
Like the portholes.
Right. That was, I would say, the portholes was the most shocking part, because then it looked different than just a glow in the sky in a certain form, like you always hear the thing, you know, swamp gas and that sort of thing. But no swamp gas is going to have portholes or a configuration geometric the way that was.
One man who has spent the last 25 years researching and keeping track of UFO sightings in the United States is Seattle fireman Robert Gribble. He has spent his spare time gathering all data possible that will help him keep track of when and where they take place. The pins on this map indicate sightings in the U.S. for just 1 year. Over the past quarter century, he has come to some conclusions based on the number of sightings he has recorded.
We have received and recorded some 30,000 sightings since 1955.
Have you noticed any particular patterns that developed in pinpointing the UFO sightings on these maps?
No, we have found no marked pattern, although we do believe that they are following two procedures. One, a surveillance of the land areas, a very close surveillance, and a close surveillance of the people, and it seems to fluctuate from one to the other.
Now, through all these years of research, you must have drawn some conclusions about what they are, what the UFOs are.
Well, we firmly believe that what the people are seeing in those objects which we have classified as unknown are actually vehicles not manufactured on this planet.
How can you draw that conclusion? How do you know?
Well, the vehicles have been seen in the United States, and there are good records of this for the last 200 years, and actually the records go back into history for some 3,000 years. The same things that were seen then are being seen today.
We understand that there are several hot spots in the United States, UFO sighting areas, and one of them happens to be in the southwestern United States in Utah.
There have been a tremendous amount of sightings in the southwest over the years, with a very large concentration in the Utah area.
The Canadian UFO Report was one of the initial UFO publications to headline the story of the possibility that much of the early Mormon history tells of a contact with an alien intelligence, the angel Moroni. It opens the possibility that the founder of Mormonism, their prophet Joseph Smith, may have been one of the greatest of UFO contactees. Dr. Frank D. Salisbury, on the faculty of the State University of Utah in Logan, and himself a Mormon, does not doubt that possibility. He has stated publicly that he believes that his UFO study has established the probability that the Earth is being visited by UFOs that seem to be using the isolated area of eastern Utah as an Earth base. In March of 1975, a national tabloid newspaper circulated the following story of a UFO kidnapping. The producers of this motion picture interviewed Carl Higdon, who furnished the artist's conception of the android crewman from the UFO who kidnapped him and took him aboard the UFO to elsewhere. Higdon was given a physical examination in a tower by a huge TV-like eye, rejected, and was returned to the elk hunting area in Wyoming, where